Welcome everyone to the Damage Report on a Thursday. I am back. I'm Francesca Fiorentini. I'm not John Iadarola. John Iadarola is currently undergoing a lot of monkey med treatment for his illness, which is not COVID. But Dr. Johnny Bananas is on the case, so he is being well looked after. Don't you worry, your pretty little heads. Welcome to another edition of the Damage Report. I'm here. We got so much good news. Well, not good, it's good because it's plentiful, but it's also bizarre. And with me for the first time on this show is writer and organizer who's worked with Rebel HQ here on TYT, Caroline Johnson. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's so great to be here. And I'm just really glad that the monkey bananas thing wasn't some story I missed that we were covering, because I got very nervous a couple minutes ago, but glad that was cleared up.
Is there a monkey that's been given an MD, just a rapid online course?
I mean, it sounds so plausible for our news cycle, like with the horse, like whatever medicine. I was like, oh my God, where was this on the rundown? But yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, and you also are an organizer and a reporter for Knock LA, which does incredible reporting here on like different social justice movements and sort of what's going on, especially with like the unhoused population, police violence. Yeah. Tell me about the story you're working on right now.
Yeah, so Knock LA is an independent journalism outlet that's focused exclusively on issues in Los Angeles, and a big issue that we are facing across California, as many people probably know, Gavin Newsom just faced a recall that, there was a lot of talk about how dangerous this was going to be for Newsom, and then it sort of collapsed. But what this has done is it has trickled down into local politics. In LA City Council alone, or LA alone, there have been 3 notable recall campaigns. 2 have already failed, but 1 is actually charging ahead. It's focused on the West Side council member Mike Bonin, who notably is the only council member who has lived experience of being homeless. And he, is one of, if not the most compassionate, most solution-driven advocate for housing our population. Basically, it's the same kind of people as the Newsom recall, who are these far right. A lot of them don't actually live in LA. They have ties to the Republican Party nationally, and they are forcing him into a recall. And the craziest thing about this situation is that they are going to spend, if they get enough signatures, they're going to spend $1.2 million forcing a recall a month before he's up for re-election. So the recall would happen in about May. He's up for re-election in June. So it's a profound waste of money. Basically, if you're in LA at a farmer's market and someone tries to get you to sign on a signature to have this recall, don't sign anything. Just don't sign
it, just to like make them go away like I usually do. I'm like, I guess, why are all your papers dirty? This is weird. Anyway, okay, yes, the recall system totally broken in this state. So yeah, among many other things that are broken in this state. But we got to get to the news. Before we do, I just have an announcement to make. Very exciting for members only. Again, tyt.com/join members. You're getting Nina Turner's first show on the network that debuts today. Power Hour with Nina Turner, Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Speaking truth to power, fight the power, get the power, use the power, Power Hour. That's right. I was paid $50 extra to say that. I'm just kidding. All right. With all that, Caroline, you ready to do this?
Oh yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So, in the fallout of the mounted chasing of Haitian migrants trying to seek refuge, asylum in the United States, in the wake of those images that we saw with Border Patrol armed with whips and honestly shouting epithets and being incredibly just openly racist and xenophobic towards those migrants, the special envoy to Haiti of the Biden administration has resigned. So the US Special Envoy for Haiti resigned in protest over the deportation of Haitian migrants. The US decision to send migrants to a country where armed gangs controlled daily life was inhumane, Daniel Foote said in his resignation letter. Right, okay, so not only do we have the chasing down of migrants in that incredibly inhumane way, but the actual deportation of them as well. So we know that flights are continuing. There have been, at least 3 to 5 flights, something like that. We're talking about, thousands of migrants. And all of this is happening under Title 42, which is this emergency order that was enacted or enabled by the Trump administration because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, and that Biden wants continued. In fact, the administration is fighting in court to have this continued, to be able to continue to deport Haitian migrants back to a country that's so unstable. So this is from Daniel Foote, again in that resignation letter, special envoy to Haiti, says, I will not be associated with the United States' inhumane, counterproductive decision to deport thousands of Haitian refugees and illegal immigrants. Daniel Foote said in a letter addressed to the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, that circulated publicly on Thursday. Foote is a career diplomat named in July as special envoy to Haiti, said conditions in the country were so bad that US officials were confined to secure compounds. He said the collapsed state was unable to support the influx of returning migrants. So think about that, right? He's saying that my American diplomats in Haiti are not even leaving their compounds. Like these folks are unsafe, and these folks have like all the privileges in the world, right? They're American diplomats in a foreign country. So imagine what a Haitian migrant with a family, displaced, fleeing violence. Imagine how they're feeling. Imagine what they're coming back to. Caroline, your thoughts on this sort of act of protest? One of the few in the early ones we've seen in this administration.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We got very used to these sort of defiant resignations under the Trump administration, and it's hard. I can't think of a resignation that's been as powerful as this one. And you know what? I really think it's a great use of his power. I mean, the images that have been coming out of the border are truly inexcusable, and the administration's response, frankly, has been as well. I mean, if folks saw the video of Kamala Harris, like if you didn't know who she was, you would not know that she was the vice president of the administration that was overseeing what's happening. I mean, it's just, I think resignations like this are super important because they prove that the Democrats are in power. It's not an excuse anymore to just use the language of being shocked and outraged. You control all 3 branches of government, and that's obviously not an easy thing. And the border, politics around the border is always fraught with so much tension. But you need to, you have to stop shirking the responsibility and take some of it on. And I think that we deserve answers rather than, oh my gosh, this is awful. This isn't who we are. That's
we'll look into that. We'll start an investigation.
Yeah, like this isn't who America is. It's just, it's insane. This is your America right now. And we took the Trump administration to task, rightfully so, time and time again. And this is no excuse to stop doing that. This is who America is at this moment, and we need answers, and we need to reckon with that. And the moral outrage in statements on Twitter just isn't going to cut it.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when they don't actually have concrete answers other than, hey, Customs and Border Patrol is going to investigate Customs and Border Patrol. How is that at all? What we mean, again, this is the problem, and I will get into, there is a story of police violence later in the show. But this is the problem with police investigating themselves and departments investigating themselves. Look, this special envoy to Haiti has, think about the things that have happened under his time, right? You've got the assassination of the president, Jovenel Moïse. You have an earthquake that killed 2,000 people and counting, displaced many thousands. And now you have this Haitian migrant crisis, and you see that the folks that you're trying to build relationships with, you're trying to create some sort of stability, are being specifically targeted. Look, I mean, I'm not saying that there haven't been mounted CBP that have chased migrants off of the border. but this is the first time we are seeing it, right? And this is and it should not be lost on anyone, the fact that these are Black migrants. And so imagining, at what point you feel like you can no longer do good in that administration, in your role, because no one's actually empowering you to do so, because you're being set up for failure. And honestly, I mean, and this is the thing, it's very interesting, right? We're however many months into, 8 months into this administration, and you've got Customs and Border Patrol doing this. You've got Jen Psaki, the press secretary, unable to explain it. You've got the vice president, Kamala Harris, unable to explain it. No one's able to explain it. Maybe that is because Customs and Border Patrol are out of control, that nobody has a leash on them, right? That they should be defunded, that ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, by the way, CBP, I believe, and I don't have the stats right now, but I remember I did a story on the border for AJ Plus years ago. They have more money than pretty much like all of other federal agents. They have more money than like the FBI, I believe. They have some of like the most incredible funding sources, right? And a lot of, I mean, people are always talking about, even Democrats, we got to put more CBP officers. Well, you talk to organizers on the border and they say that, yeah, they're just sitting there in their cars. They're just sitting there in their like air conditioned, like, giant Humvees, like watching Breaking Bad, which I feel like is what they would be watching, or something ridiculous about, like they are overfunded, right? And we see that here in the ways that militarism is not the answer and is not the way to solve this. I want to just go to a different angle on this, because in response to the migrant crisis on the border of Texas and Mexico, of the US and Mexico, the Biden administration is taking a different tact. They see the crisis happening on the border and they're saying, we need more detentions. And they are now floating the idea to open or reopen a migrant detention camp in Guantánamo. That's right. The Biden administration is now in the ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, is inviting tenders, so inviting bids for private contractors to run the Migrant Operations Center on the US naval base close to the prison compounds, housing the remaining 39 detainees held in the war on terror. Okay, so this is a facility that not a lot of people know about, but it's been in existence. The little known immigrant holding facility on the base has a capacity of 120 people, the records say, and it will have an estimated daily population of 20 people, according to the solicitation bids issued Friday by DHS. According to the solicitation, formal bidding is expected to take place later this fall. Okay, so 120 people, that's the capacity. Think about that a little bit, and then look at the number of migrants on the US-Mexico border. How are we doing that? Well, there's more, because there's a sort of history here with this detention center. So the service provider, this is from the contract, the open bids, shall be responsible to maintain on site the necessary equipment to erect temporary housing facilities for a population that exceeds 120 and up to 400 migrants in a surge event. Okay, that's still not probably the numbers, even if you were to do something like this that could house migrants that are currently coming in. The reason that I'm relating it to the Haitian migrant crisis on the border right now is because it appears like that's what the Biden administration is also thinking, because in this solicitation, it adds at least 10% of the augmented personnel must be fluent in Spanish and Haitian Creole. Air transportation to and from the facility is also the sole responsibility of the service provider. Anyone imagine that Eric Prince will not swoop in right now with his $6,000 flights and be like, hey, anybody want to get over to Guantanamo? Caroline, thoughts on housing migrants fleeing Haiti at the naval base of Guantanamo?
Yeah, it's so shocking and horrifying, and it's really fascinating too that the journalists who uncovered this story were able to do so because of that very brief hint of that the enforcers, if you will, need to speak Haitian Creole, which is a dead giveaway that is exactly what is going to happen with these individuals at the border. And then of course, a member of the Trump administration came out and said, "Oh, it's this specific part of Guantanamo. It's a different area. It is a migrant holding cell. We are not going to the prison." It doesn't matter. Guantanamo Bay is a symbol of America's tyranny, frankly, across the world, and the horrible conditions that we subject human beings to, regardless of their background. It's been, promised to be closed for so long, and the fact that it is now being used by the administration that won this election because of the hard work of a lot of activists and organizers who, wouldn't allow Trump to be reelected for the main issue of his border policies. And so the fact that this administration is, it doesn't matter that it's a separate holding cell. The symbolism of Guantanamo Bay is, it basically just displays the failures of American foreign policy just right out there. And it's really sad and shocking. And I'm very grateful to the reporters who were able to take that little nugget of information and just say, like, this is what's happening.
Yeah. And for context, this is not the first time that migrants seeking refuge in the United States have been held at Guantanamo. So let's just talk about it. The migrant camp was first set up in 1991 and was intended to hold Cuban asylum seekers. Ultimately, it was used to detain about 34,000 Haitians and roughly the same number of Cubans until it was wound down by the Obama administration. And it has not been used to hold migrants since 2017. Okay, so under George H.W. Bush in 91 to 93, Haitians sought to flee the country to seek asylum in Florida, and 12,000 were sent to Guantanamo Bay. So there's varying numbers, but apparently, yes, under William Barr, none other than fascist Barney Rubble oversaw that program. Now, I'm just stunned by the numbers because none of it's adding up, right? Like, I don't understand how, and I think we all know the answer, how facilities that are meant for something like 120 people or 400 at most people could be holding 12,000, 30,000 migrants. And that's because it's just overcrowding, right? That's because, we don't treat migrants like they're human beings. Problem solved. We overcrowd jails. We overcrowd jails for American citizens as well in this country all the time. The DHS is saying, however, that despite this reporting, despite their letter soliciting, saying, hey, highest bidder and or best bidder or whomever, please open this facility once again, DHS is saying it is not sending and will not send Haitian nationals being encountered at the southwest border to the Migrant Operations Center in Guantanamo Bay. The MOC has not been used for decades to process migrants interdicted at sea for third country resettlement. The request for information recently posted is a typical routine step in a contract renewal and unrelated to the southwest border. Okay, so if it's unrelated, then bro, bad timing, dude. Like, why are you doing this now, DHS? Like, why? Or ICE, it's like, and once again, if ICE, who's asking for this renewal, which is under the head of DHS, which is under the head of the Biden administration, like, are we not talking to one another? Could it be once again that ICE is out of control? Are they operating on their own? Is CBP and ICE, should they maybe be dismantled? Yeah, I mean, that's my personal opinion, but hey, I'm just here to report the news, buddy, you know what I'm saying? I don't have opinions, no, but it is, I think it is a question, obviously, of like, what does happen, right? That I think, everyone from, the far right to all folks who are like, well, how should we treat and what should we do with the, thousands of migrants seeking refuge? And I think for me, the answer is always, hey, treat them like they're human. If you start from a place of the fact that they're human, then you won't chase them down with whips. Then you won't deport them en masse to a country that is falling apart. There may, in fact, be detention, but you won't hold them there for months and months on end. You won't separate them from their families. You allow them to be processed. You allow them to go into the United States. And then there are many ways of tracking people who come to the United States who have asylum cases, right? You staff up when it comes to the immigration courts that are overrun, that are totally they're overrun because the number of migrants, they're overrun because they're underfunded, right? You got CBP getting all the funds, and yet the actual courts that are processing asylum claims, I mean, they basically all admit that they are over their heads. Final thoughts, Caroline, on this?
I just think what you said about treating people like human beings needs to be restated, put words just across the country. I think, and this is a big issue we also see with how people in the country treat unhoused populations of American citizens, of veterans. It really is a shocking twist in your thinking when you finally say, hey, look, that person on the street or that person being whipped by a Border Patrol agent is a sentient being and has just as many feelings and emotions and family members and loved ones as I do. When we make that shift in perspective, and it's truly revolutionary. It really is. And I think that's why images like this are so powerful coming out of the border, is because it's the rare case where we can actually see the brutality of, decades of administrations that we just haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And it's really tragic that it has to be these awful images that, no one wants to see. But we have to recognize that you have to start from a place of recognizing a common humanity. Nationality, ethnicity is all secondary to those things if you don't have just a general underlying belief that, human beings can experience pain and need supportive community. Yeah. So I think that's a super important point, and one that transcends into so many issues that we're dealing with in America as well on a policy level, and it's just going to get worse. I mean, globally, this story, what we need to do is just going to get harder and harder to do.
100%, yeah. We need to decriminalize the border also. That's the main thing. Stop treating people who cross the border as criminals. It's not a criminal act to cross the border. Sorry.
No.
All right,
yeah,
we got to
take quickly. The Biden administration said in their own words that Haiti is a country on the brink of collapse. So anyone, Dan Crenshaw the other day was saying that asylum seekers are faking their need for asylum. So anyway, just saying by the administration's own definition, Haiti needs our help.
Yes. All right, let's go to our first break. We're gonna be reading comments. We'll be right back. What's going on, Dragon Squad? Are you happy to see me? You are. You're a little worried about John, but he's fine. He's mostly just snot at this point, probably. It's probably his dog is just there, Anyway, I was gonna get grosser with that. All right, let's go to the member comments. Thank you so much, Kayla Matson. Woot, 3 months as a member, keeping me sane and hopeful for the future. Some days at least. Yeah, like today. I'll give you all the hope. Sorry. Joseph Murphy, member for 9 months. Dragon Squad. Dragon Squad. Non-human humanist, hi. It's awful how migrants and refugees from the South are treated. Europe lets them drown in the sea even though they have surveillance so they can see them. Also criminalize fishermen who try to help. Oh my God, yeah, they have their own right wing who there's far right activists who commandeer their own ships to go and hunt for migrants, not to help them, but to turn them away. Anyway. Super chat comments, thank you so much, Moondragon, for the $5 super chat. What's up, Moondragon? I suspect the new Surgeon General of Florida may be a monkey. Yes, you might be right. Dr. Johnny Bananas got a new job. All right, Scott Benny's, he's happy. Trista LaCour, thank you for the nearly $20 super chat. Woo! Hi, Francesca, always happy when you're on TDR. Hi, thank you. And once again, $10 more just to say, love you too, Caroline. Love you too. You've just met, but it's all love here in the Dragon Den. JR, thank you for the $5 super chat. I mean, the migrants didn't bring a bunch of bootstraps with them. Well, there's the problem. FFS, which I think I know what that means. I've got to Google the Urban Dictionary a little bit. Yeah, no, exactly. It's, oh God. Yeah, we could. I mean, honestly, that is what it is. I mean, if they would come in and be like, I'm voting Republican, you wonder how Republicans would feel. Tama Wilsat, thank you for the $10 super chat. Visionary Heart Dragon here. Dragon Daddy sick. We are sad. Dragon Stepmom here. We are glad. We hope he swiftly gets well. Meanwhile, with Francesca here, all is swell. Oh, that's so sweet. I don't leave the house, so there's just dander in the house. I can't even get sick from anything. All right. Twitch chat, what up, Twitch? Tell me what to put says, Caroline is 100% correct. Biden slapping activists in the face, the same activists who helped him win the White House. Yes, we know the organizations that got, I mean, honestly, like look at the Latino vote, they came out overwhelmingly for Biden and he has yet to deliver. Postcards from Meh. Subscribe with Prime. Thank you so much for 7 months for that subscription. Wanda Pear, subscribe with Prime for 4 months. Love your show, John. Keep up the great work. I'll tell him. Eliza Gale, subscribe with Prime. Thank you for 10 months. Eliza Gale saying, thank you so much for helping guide us through the insanity. I'm so grateful for TYT and TDR. Yay. And then Banjo Queen, warm greetings from me in Western Massachusetts. Pete's love and good vibrations to all. Yes, likewise. Good. I'm not gonna sing. Leftover Zach subscribed to 1 tier for 13 months. Lost my sub for a few hours. Uh-oh. Whoa. What happened in that lapse? You never know. Probably like a Doritos commercial or something. Thank you, Juco Main, for subscribing at tier 1 for 12 months. Appreciate you. And we gotta go back to the show. So see you there. All right. Welcome back to the Damage Report. Francesca Fiorentini here with Caroline Johnson. Just a quick reminder to y'all, if you haven't liked the stream, what are you doing with your life? Like the stream, share the stream right now, do all the things. Listen to the Bituation Room podcast. That's my podcast. Don't do it now, do it later. It's a great show. We've got another show on Sunday. I'll tell you about it later. But let's go to this next story.
No sane first world nation opens its borders to the world, promising the poorest people on the planet that they can have endless free taxpayer funded services if they show up and break your laws. That's not just stupid, it's suicidal. For generations, middle-class Americans have had access to the best healthcare in the world, but not anymore. That's over for good. Our system cannot handle this many destitute newcomers, period. Imagine what hospitals are going to look like a year from now. How about schools? What Joe Biden is doing now will change this country forever. So again, why is he doing it?
That is, God, what's his name again? I don't know. It's like doughy and like clanny. It'll come to me. Anyway, that was that guy talking last night on his show, How Am I Not a Nazi? About the border crisis and what's going on right now with the Haitian migrants, saying what will happen to our schools if migrants are allowed in? What will happen to our hospitals? Caroline, what is happening to our hospitals right now in the middle of COVID, thanks to an entire party that has fomented misinformation and disinformation about COVID-19? They're being completely overrun. Yep. They are understaffed. Mm-hmm. They are totally, and that's just American citizens doing that work. Yeah, what's happening in schools?
That's all us. Yeah,
that's on us. Thoughts on that opener?
I mean, you have to give him credit. Just the propaganda is so flawless sometimes with him. Again, can't remember his name, but I particularly love how he says the middle class people have had access to the best healthcare in the world. It's just like, okay, what about the people who aren't middle class? Like he knows, like there is an element of knowing, what middle class that is rapidly dwindling, and then also, like, is he being funny? Everyone in the world laughs at our healthcare system and how inaccessible and expensive it is. And this is all pre-COVID. I mean, one of the reasons that the left has been galvanized, one of the leading reasons, is because healthcare in this country is exorbitant if you aren't a millionaire. So him just like sliding over the issue that millions upon millions of Americans don't get access to this best healthcare, I think is just hilarious. And then I also love the endless free taxpayer funded services. Trying to rack my brain, what could those be? The living in Los Angeles, our public transit is far from robust. Our schools across the nation, our public schools are, being constantly underfunded. Maybe he means the police, because that's kind of the only taxpayer funded service I can think of that is really going above and beyond what they're needed for in society.
Right. Who's unduly targeting themselves. I mean, once again, this is one of the myths that he spouts in this monologue, and we'll get to the second one because he's going places. Oh, don't worry, he's going places with this. But yes, undocumented migrants somehow cashing in on the system, getting everything for free. Things like Social Security. What? Undocumented migrants, by definition, are unable to access the services that they do pay taxes on, right? That they actually they pay for. They are docked that pay oftentimes and are unable to cash in on those services. And what happens, in states like California, their undocumented migrants under Gavin Newsom have been able to access things like healthcare, right? And Medicaid, which I believe is important, because what happens when undocumented migrants are unable to access healthcare? They inevitably go to emergency rooms. Necessary, like many people who don't have healthcare will go to emergency rooms. And who pays for that? That is taxpayers. In fact, studies have been done that show it is cheaper to offer universal healthcare to both documented and undocumented people living inside of the United States than it is to allow folks to either die, live in, be sick, spread things like a virus, or go to the emergency room. But look, he is not about having an honest conversation about what it is and how it is that migrants live in this country and undocumented people live in this country. That obviously is not the goal. The goal of this entire monologue is to get to the great replacement theory, right? The white nationalist idea that somehow Democrats are quote unquote importing voters in order to replace white people. That's it, that people of color are being imported to replace white people. And here's how he gets there. First, he starts by going to a Biden quote from the year 2015 that is just honestly talking about the changing demographics and the fact that many people are coming and seeking refuge and a new life inside the United States. Take a look.
An unrelenting stream of immigration, non-stop. Folks like me who were Caucasian of European descent, for the first time in 2017, will be in an absolute minority in the United States of America. Absolute minority. Fewer than 50% of the people in America from then and on will be white European stock. That's not a bad thing. That's a source of our strength.
An unrelenting stream of immigration. But why? Well, Joe Biden just said it, to change the racial mix of the country. That's the reason, to reduce the political power of people whose ancestors lived here and dramatically increase the proportion of Americans newly arrived from the third world. And then Biden went further. He said that non-white DNA is the quote source of our strength. Imagine saying that. This is the language of eugenics. It's horrifying. But there's a reason Biden said it. In political terms, this policy is called the Great Replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries. They brag about it all the time, but if you dare to say it's happening, they will scream at you with maximum hysteria. And here you have Joe Biden confirming his motive on tape with a smile on his face. No one who talks like this should ever be the president of the United States.
Okay, there is a lot to unpack in that just full fash clip. You know, every clip of Tucker Carlson, oops, I said his name, is fashy, but like this one goes all the way. This one is some 8chan, Telegram message board type conversation, which is openly saying that, non-white DNA, things like this, the Great Replacement theory and all that, and that Democrats are doing this. So there's a couple of things. First, let's take the Biden quote that he actually uses as his evidence that, somehow Biden is advocating the Great Replacement theory because he wants to replace people of European descent, as if those are original Americans at all, with people of non-European descent, of non-white DNA. I don't know about you, Caroline, but that quote from Biden did not sound, it is not that at all. If anything, it sounded a little bit like we're getting replaced, Europeans are getting replaced. And I guess there's nothing wrong with that. It almost sounds like he's agreeing with Tucker Carlson in that quote, not disagreeing with him.
That's exactly what I thought. At first I was like, where is this going? And then, yeah, in my opinion, Biden takes a little too long getting to the fact that this is a good thing. Like, because for that majority of that first statement, you're kind of just like, okay, you're using the word white European stock, which is a little like just a little odd. But he's totally, the news reporter who shall not be named is totally just using any clip that he can find Biden sort of referring to this Great Replacement theory and just like smashing it together with absolutely no real conclusive or engaging like thought process behind it. Like the Great Replacement theory is not a political theory, it's a conspiracy theory. I mean, and the only thing that people really need to know is that the Biden administration is on track to expel more people than Trump. The number of immigrants in detention under Biden has increased 70%. So as always, the numbers and the facts just aren't on the right wing side. And it's just frustrating that we have to subject ourselves to the conversation about this ridiculous conspiracy theory when the conversation needs to be about our own party and how we can actually hold them accountable for the things they've promised us and not waste any time with these ridiculous theories about how the Democrats are trying to replace people. It's like, no, actually a lot of Democrats in power are just as conservative as Republicans on the issue of immigration, and that's what we need to be focusing on.
Yes. No, exactly. I mean, if anything, he's drawing my attention to that Biden quote, which is, white European stock. And then it's sort of like, it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode that does not age well, where they talk about someone being gay or like thinking that they're gay, and they're like, not that there's anything wrong with that, and it's like, that might have been funny for the 90s, but now you're like, don't say though that there's anything wrong with that laugh line, right? Because it sounds like what Biden does, like, there's a lot of immigrants of color coming to the States, not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're sort of saying that there is something wrong with that. I mean, and Biden is honestly stating facts. And so this is the thing with Tucker, is basically taking Biden stating facts. Yes, there are non-white immigrants coming to the United States, and saying, see, he wants non-white immigrants coming to the United States. And Biden saving his, behind by saying, which is a source of our strength, which is performative for sure, but like is definitely something that the United States in principle says it is founded on, right? Says whether you call it, like the melting pot, the fruit salad or whatever salad, Waldorf, I don't know what we're working with right now. Like that yes, diversity is our strength, but of course, in Trumpian times, that is no longer the case. And here you have Tucker, and the best part about Tucker doing all this is that he's like, but as soon as you say it, they get so mad. Everyone gets mad. And again, the politics of just creating liberal outrage is like what they're in it for. It's what Tucker and what he wants his audience to be in it for. He doesn't necessarily want you to believe in the Great Replacement theory, but he wants you to believe in it because it makes liberals mad, right? Not because you believe it, but you kind of do believe it, but maybe you are a Nazi and like maybe you went to one meeting and like maybe you're on like a group chat that shares, Holocaust memes, but also it makes liberals cry. The grooming is insane. Like I'm just like, how many advertisers, like who is left? Do we like I don't know, is Dutch Glow still advertising on? It's a very nice, you can polish your wooden ducks with Dutch Glow. Anyway, who is left advertising for Fox?
That's such a shame. Why would Dutch Glow do that?
Dutch Glow has principles. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like Dutch Glow stands for something.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, it really is troubling. And I mean, yeah, going back to his point about, it's just interesting to think about who Tucker's audience is, because I think we all know that he has a huge audience. And I think him sort of earlier in the clip saying that quote about, middle-class Americans, that really speaks to who his audience is. And as we know, with the wealth gap dividing, those middle-class Americans are either, a majority of them are getting poorer, some of them are getting richer. And you just have to fear that if he is, siloing his audience so much, because for a couple of years now, it's been that like, just general conservative Republicans probably wouldn't agree to any of this. But if he is totally like narrowing his audience and even expanding, but just going full mask off with these comments, it kind of begs the question of like, why do people even need to go into like 8chan or 4chan or all of these things? Then I know we're talking about a little bit later, but like, it kind of defeats the purpose for those secret outlets. Now it's just out there. It's on TV night after night, and there's something so addicting about it, clearly. And yeah, I guess it just goes to show that there's something really addicting about lies and conspiracy theories and someone sort of feeding into your worst instincts, which I think is the worst part about him and his show, is he takes, a kernel of what someone might be worried about and gives it legitimacy and gives it, a theoretical political theory name and says, again, yeah, I'm not saying anything, but here's the information. And it's like, it just, the right wing just operates on targeting people's worst instincts. And like we said before, you really have to operate on the assumption that people are good and human beings deserve respect. And that's just not what they're doing, because it's easier. It's easier to do that, that 100%. Nasty approach.
For sure. All right, we got to take our second break, but we will come back. But I don't speak anymore. I'm going to speak backwards when we come back. Be right back. All right. Just FYI for everyone who doesn't know, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie is coming up after this show. Am I supposed to announce that here or later? Maybe both places. The point is this. tyt.com/indisputable, youtube.com/indisputable TYT, that's what it is. Right after the show, 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. Don't miss that. I'm gonna re-announce that later because I think I was supposed to announce that later. Oopsies. All right, guys. What's going on in the super chat? Please let me know. Please holler, give your thoughts, do all the things. TDR Live on Twitter. Ava610 says, treat humans like they're human. Francesca Fiorentini, can I get that stitched onto pillows, bumper stickers, t-shirts, and on home decor? Replace the live, laugh, love signs. Yes, replace the it's wine o'clock somewhere with, hey, don't be a POS. Laura Brack on Twitter. looks like I can tune into the Damage Report live today. I can knock out my cardio during TDR live. Yay. Dragon Daddy is out sick. Looks like it's gonna be a fantastic Thursday because Stepmama Dragon is in the his house. That is the most perfect spelling of his house. And I hope you're working up a sweat. I am too, just by sitting here trying to do this job. It's difficult. I know why John is sick. They make him sick. Tom Zawacki, TDR Live, excuse me if I'm naive, but wouldn't it be easier to provide Haiti with food and aid until people can get back on their feet? If it was good enough for the Middle East and Europe and Japan, why is Haiti such a stretch? I mean, the sad reality about that is the United States has given billions of dollars in aid to Haiti over the years after, the previous earthquake, I believe in 2010. I might be getting that wrong, but there have been a lot of investigative reporting done about those aid organizations not distributing that aid to the people, the corruption involved in the distribution of that aid, and the fact that it actually hasn't been helping in the long term. So I'm with you. I totally agree with you for sure over deportations, but it seems like the systems in place, there aren't any, right? And there is no accountability, just like in places like Afghanistan or Iraq. Oh, hey, we're gonna build this hospital. Oops, no one's not meant for anybody. Oh, it's just a shell company. It's a shell scheme to get rich. Cool. Like, no one's following up on that aid. Any hoodle. Bub Dragon on Twitch. People like Tucker need the middle class so they can pretend wealth inequality isn't a thing. Absolutely. And again, they're talking to upper middle class. They're talking to boat dads. They're talking to soccer moms who don't have to work. They can they're like rewatching in the middle of the day. They're TiVoing it or whatever. No, I'm serious. Like it is. I'm sick of the idea and the fantasy that I think a lot of folks play into, that it's like somehow the right is working class or middle class. They're neither. They're comfortable. Tell me what to put. I'm excited to see. Oh, Francesca in downtown LA today. I love Fran's comedy routine. Can't wait to see it this evening. I am gonna be at a show in downtown LA tonight at the bar Here and Now at 8 p.m. Get tickets, only $10. Very exciting. It's a good show, I think. Aliana on Twitch, I love that he says replacing those that have inherited or whatever for a long time. But like, dude, have you met Native Americans? They're already not white. White people invaded. Yes, they did. Be right back. Welcome back to the Damage Report. Francesca Fiorentini, Caroline Johnson. Remember, guys, after this show, Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, youtube.com/indisputable TYT. That's where you go to watch the doc do his damn thing. 2:30 Eastern, 11 Pacific, 11:30 Pacific. Don't miss that right after this. But let's move into our next story. So it appears that blood is not thicker than water and definitely not thicker than money, especially when your last name is Trump. Former President Donald J. Trump is now trying to put the squeeze on his own niece, filing a lawsuit on Tuesday accusing Mary L. Trump, the New York Times, and 3 of its reporters of conspiring in an insidious plot to improperly obtain his confidential tax records and exploit their use in news articles and a book. Oh, buddy, if we're gonna sue everyone who made a book off of you, we're gonna be in lawsuits for a long time. You sure you want more? Are you sure you want more? But more on the lawsuit. It accuses the Times and 3 of its investigative reporters, Suzanne Craig, David Barstow, and Russell I can't do this name, Buettner, relentlessly seeking out Mary Trump as a source of information and convincing her to turn over documents. The suit claims that reporters were aware of the settlement agreement that barred her from disclosing the documents. So apparently, there's some, if you're a Trump, kind of like, NDA agreement, if you got like a crappy pair of socks from Fred Trump one Christmas, then you can never speak about what the Trump family does. I don't know, I imagine it's something like that. but there was supposedly a confidentiality agreement, according to the lawsuit, that this action, the entire revealing, right, of the tax documents, breached a confidentiality agreement that was part of the settlement of litigation involving the will of former president's father, Fred C. Trump, who died in 1999. Trump is seeking now $100 million in damages. And Rudy Giuliani is very excited. He's like, I'm finally gonna get paid. Yes, praise Jesus. I don't do a very good Rudy. So just a response. I want to go to this tweet from a response from the reporter about this, right? So this is Suzanne Craig, who is being named in this lawsuit, right? Saying that there was a conspiracy. And she writes, I knocked on Mary Trump's door. She opened it. I think they call that journalism. Yeah. Caroline, have you ever been accused of conspiracy in your reporting for talking to sources?
Not that I know of, but if the bar is that you can't ask anyone anything ever, then I'm definitely guilty of that. I hope I'm like racking my brain, trying to figure out what loops I need to close in my own life right now, because it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for reporters.
Is your last name Trump?
No, so I'm probably good.
Probably good.
Okay, but I mean, in all seriousness, like what you were saying before, this just all these lawsuits bring up so many questions. Truly, why is he doing this? I mean, why is he continuously doing this? We all know he's not a billionaire. Like the whole point of releasing the tax records in that bombshell New York Times article was revealing that he's really not as wealthy as his quote unquote empire would have us believe. So why is he doing this? He's going to lose. He has lost similar lawsuits in the past, I think, because the terms of that confidentiality agreement were like super vague and obviously didn't account for the fact that he would someday become the president of the United States, which is still hard to believe. But I don't know why he continues to do this, because it's also not like it's bringing, it's doing the exact same thing. It's giving more fuel to the fire of Mary Trump. And like, she's definitely, using her platform. So they're accusing her of trying to ruin him and trying to like become famous basically, but in filing this lawsuit, they're just continuing that. So I don't know. Do you have any, like, what am I missing? What is the point of this?
I mean, I did see Eric Trump on Maria Bartiromo basically breaking down in a tear saying the subpoenas, we just got so many subpoenas. So I think they are being named in many lawsuits, and they are the defendants in those cases. So I think they're coming at him real fast. And the only thing that was protecting Trump from any accountability, whether it was from the Trump organizations, like non-profit status, to Trump University, to any of the other ways that he swindled folks, to the number of people who he basically got to donate triple what they wanted to donate in all of the fundraising emails that he sent out and his campaign sent out. The only thing protecting him from any of that was staying in the White House. And now that he is not in the White House, I mean, straight up, my man did not want to be president anymore. He just wanted to avoid any responsibility for his crimes. And also, I mean, again, the best thing that could have happened to Trump, you just ride out your celebrity lifestyle. You're just super 80s weird hair, like creepo, just status quo. No one would have come forward with as many rape allegations as they've had necessarily. No one would have looked into your tax documents. But of course, Mary Trump, the niece of Donald Trump, one too many cheap gifts on Christmas, and that's what happens. She basically began to speak out in the later part of the Trump administration, and these tax documents were part of it, handing them over to the New York Times. So the documents, this is just so y'all know, the documents that Ms. Trump provided were that basis of the 2018 article that delved into what the Times called Mr. Trump's history of tax dodging and outright fraud, according to the lawsuit. The Times report cast doubt on Mr. Trump's claim that he was a self-made billionaire, remember that? Who rose to wealth and fame with the help of his father and a real estate developer. Instead, the investigation found that Mr. Trump inherited the equivalent of at least $413 million, much of it through dubious tax schemes. Yeah, we all remember $750. That's how much in federal taxes Trump paid 1 year. No, not even 1 year. That was over many years. I've put that again in the box of hurt that I have in the back of my head, where it's like, sad fact goes here. 2 million people in the prison system in the United States, sad fact goes back here. But any more thoughts on this, and Caroline, and sort of, is he gonna get off, right? Like, what is going to happen? First of all, I don't know how much legs his own lawsuit has. It's just gonna be back and forth on this.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point about how, leaving he never expected to be president, and that was shielding him for his entire time in office for all of the shady business things he had been doing his entire career before then. And yeah, just finishing it off, I'm totally with you that I if there's one thing that's super confusing about Trump to me is like, just live your life now. You ruined enough democracy for one lifetime, like, just go. I loved how we were talking on the Power Panel 2 weeks ago about how he was commentating on a boxing match in Florida, and I'm like, yes. Do that. Just live your truth, live your dreams. Stop ruining everyone's lives for eternity. I beg.
Just get pec implants like Ren did on Ren and Stimpy. He became this new guy. Go become a WWF wrestler. Like, get tan, you know what I mean? You don't have to use any more bronzer. Like, there are so many things you could do. But again, and this is actually, it is a warning shot, and it's sort of revealing, right? Trump revealed and pulled back the sort of like, I imagine like a log with a bunch of termites and disgusting like grubs underneath, very Lion King, except anyway, the point is, he revealed so much about our political system, which is that if you want to avoid accountability for your white collar crimes, your tax schemes, your tax fraud, your insider trading, run for office. If you want to avoid responsibility for the, sexual assault claims, for bullying people, run for office, right? Especially as a Republican. Don't run as a Democrat. No. They resign eventually. Run for Republican office. That is the way you can avoid responsibility. That's the way you can continue to, move everything into a non-disclosed like a account over here, even though he didn't even do that. Anyway, we will see where this goes. We will see how Mary Trump stands up to his uncle again. It's beautiful. I love that it's like the reverse of giving your niece $20 every birthday or whatever. It's like just he's slowly clawing back and taking back that money. All right, we've got more after this. Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining me on Linear. Stay tuned on YouTube. Hey, welcome back to the Damage Report. Francesca Fiorentini here with Caroline Johnson. So happy to have you here, Caroline.
Thank you. This has been great. What a fun time talking about the worst things ever.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, there's more to come. We're going to talk about some COVID salad dressing, and we're going to talk about the police in Missouri acting terribly. But first, let's go to some of your comments, you guys. Thank you so much for all of your chats. For the super chats, Trista, again, thank you for your $20 chat. My goodness. Guess what, Tucker? We can build new world-class hospitals and schools. 47% of the US is utterly uninhabited. New world-class hospitals will generate millions in new jobs and improvements in the American quality of life. Agreed. But also Medicare for all. That's world-class hospitals. It's like the way I feel about housing, Yeah, more housing, but you need rent control. Otherwise, it's not equitable. Nana Nikki, thank you for the super chat. KKK Carlson needs to swap his quotes. Immigrants are, quote, just desperate people who are trying to survive. And people who forge government documents and tamper with government websites are the criminals. Yeah, or storm the Capitol when they don't like if an election went their way. Debbie Bouger, sad day. Tomorrow's the 1-year anniversary of the death of the love of my life. He died of the Rona, but IA put heart attack on the death cert. Wow. I'm so sorry, Debbie, and sending you lots of love and healing. And my uncle also died of coronavirus, and that's crazy that they put that on the death certificate, and that leads to so much misinformation, right? And all the people that are still like tweeting me going like, if you look at the stats, and you're like, please stop. Jose Rodriguez, thank you for the $10 super chat. I'm a citizen after my dad got his residency in the Reagan administration, or in the Reagan amnesty. I am privileged, and I want to know what a person like me can do to help immigrants. I want them to better their life like I did. Well, 100% fighting for, honestly, political parties that actually understand that amnesty is a good thing, is a benefit to both other countries and our country. And it's bizarre that, Ronald Reagan did a lot of bad things. Reaganomics, terrible. War on drugs, terrible. But amnesty is something that he understood, and immigrant rights is something he understood more, as well as, George H.W. Bush. But yeah, thoughts on how to get involved, Caroline?
Yeah, it really does, and I always say this, it really just starts in your neighborhood, in your home, hometown, getting involved locally, contributing to mutual aid groups. And also, yeah, it's really important to realize that while we obviously want to accept immigrants and refugees, they do face huge barriers once they get here in gaining necessary services, being able to live, peaceful, the lives of tranquility that they and progress that they are seeking out when they come here. So it starts in your neighborhood and getting involved locally, getting involved with mutual aid groups, and really just recognizing that once people are integrated into our society as migrants or immigrants, the troubles don't just end there. And it's really up to us as people fortunate enough to be born in the United States that we really need to extend our communities, extend our services to them, and know that this is just the beginning of a really, really long and hard process that continues through their entire lives.
Right, 100%. All right, well, let's get back to the news. We've got a lot more to cover. I'm excited that y'all are here. So let's just jump into this next video.
Judgment, are voter ID laws racist? Professor Tolson.
Thank you for that question. So it depends. One thing we have to stop doing is treating all voter ID laws as the same.
Okay, so your answer, I want to move quickly, so it depends is your answer?
Yes, that's my answer.
Okay, so what voter ID laws are racist?
Apologies, Mr. Cruz, your state of Texas, perhaps?
Okay, so you think the entire state of Texas is racist. What about requiring an ID to vote is racist?
So I think, sir, that's pretty reductive. I'm not saying the entire state of Texas is racist.
You just said my state of Texas. So you tell me, what about the Texas voter ID laws is racist?
So the fact that the voter ID law was put into place to diminish the political power of Latinos with racist intent and had been found to have
You're
racist
asserting
intent.
that. What's your evidence for that?
The federal district court that first resolved the constitutionality of Texas's voter ID law.
Okay, so your view is voter ID laws are racist. How about you, Mr. Yang?
I agree with Professor Tolson. Voter ID laws can be racist.
Okay, that's two. Mr. Science?
There are some voter ID laws that are racially discriminatory in intent.
And that is 3. I think you are outnumbered, Mr. Cruz. So obviously Ted Cruz doesn't just like to be ratioed online. That is in person at the Senate Judiciary Committee on restoring the Voting Rights Act, combating discriminatory abuses. You guys obviously remember that the Supreme Court did gut the Voting Rights Act, which was sort of the last barrier to a lot of states being able to pass all the voter ID laws like Ted Cruz's state of Texas is doing currently. The first person to speak there was Franita Tolson, whose name I just love because it's Franita, which is like just a better fun take on my name, Francesca. Anyway, love you, Franita. That's Professor Franita Tolson. And then you heard John C. Yang, who's the president of Asian Americans Advancing Justice, and Thomas Sayans, the president of Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund. They are all testifying about new voter ID laws and other voter suppression laws, let's just be honest, and had immediate things to say. And there's Ted Cruz trying to make it like, you're saying my state is racist? No. Hey, pay attention. We're in a discussion about voter ID laws. The voter ID laws are racist. What are you saying? And so that was Professor Tolson immediately retorting. I just want to reference, if you think she just made anything that she set up, she did not. She's talking about the fact that there was already precedent by a US District Court. Let's just go to this graphic. In 2017, Judge Nelva Gonzalez Ramos of the US District Court for the Southern District of Texas ruled that the Texas voter ID law, which requires voters to present a driver's license or other identification to cast a ballot, violated the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So that's already stood. That was already decided. And she's bringing the evidence clearly the senator hasn't heard about. Caroline, what were your reactions to this?
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out just Cruz's attempt to like frame the professor in what I assume is, he knew she was gonna bring the facts. And I think he tried to like trip her up by getting whatever soundbite or whatever of her saying Texas is racist when she said Texas is, meaning the voter laws, the voter ID laws are racist. Yeah, this is, I'm really happy this conversation is happening even so, when we don't have a federal election coming up soon, because now is the time that these concerns need to be addressed. And I think instances like this that go viral, where you just have a table of very calm but passionate experts, like really kind of dumbing themselves down to try to explain to right-wing politicians why voter ID laws are very disenfranchising. Because now is the time we need to deal with this. And I think videos like that, and in the previous elections where, how they show like the lines getting into voting centers and voting booths and stuff, and how that narrative is changing, that like that is not a good thing. You should be able to walk in and cast a vote and not have to take hours, even 30 minutes out of your day to vote. And I think it's really great that in these off years, we are having these conversations. We're sort of chipping away at this, that this idea of elections and election rules being sort of only talked about leading up to the election. So I'm very happy to see it.
Yeah, I mean, and this is just it's a hearing, it's fact finding, but because it has, the word discrimination, which is very funny because you saw the three of them. I mean, Cruz is like, is it racist? Which of course, right? The R word for Republicans is like, they think it's their N word, but it's not, but they see it as that. And like they're all saying, like, yeah, it's racist. Yeah, it's racist. And then the third guy's like, it is discriminatory. It is racially biased. How can I say this in a way that doesn't hurt your white little feelings? And your performative feelings, because yeah, exactly. Cruz really wanted this to be like his moment, but no, it was Franita's moment, and we all know that. Of course, this is happening in his state. I mean, this is happening while simultaneously in his state, Governor Greg Abbott, who is honestly a Marvel villain at this point, signed Senate Bill 1 after the Republican-led legislature approved it during the second special session that the second-term GOP governor had called this year. Democrats had previously blocked versions of the measure by fleeing the state for weeks, preventing the House from having the quorum necessary to do business. The new law makes it harder to obtain mail-in ballots, prohibits drop boxes to turn in those ballots, limits early voting time, and eliminates drive-through voting. There is also an interview that I believe John did with the author of that article, Ellie Mistal. So definitely check that out on the Damage Report, all about the voting rights in Texas. And yes, and how whenever you limit the time people can vote, whether it's time of day, whether it's mail-in ballots, whether it's drop boxes, those inevitably, all those rules inevitably fall on the backs of Black and brown people, of immigrants, right? Of working people, of people who, English as a second language, all of the folks who already have barriers to being able to take time off to go vote, right? And the fact that we don't have voting in this country as a national holiday, I mean, how? How can we honestly go around and say we're the shining city on the hill, that we're the best democracy in the world? Anyone who tells you that should be just laughed in the face of. Honestly, it is, and from the left and right, the so-called left and right, people echo this all the time. Well, then why isn't voting a national holiday? Riddle me that. That's it. And yeah, so that's obviously something that I'm glad we're talking about. But of course, we've got the For the People Act. We've got this, sweeping, expansive federal act that needs to be passed by Democrats, right? Can we pass that through budget reconciliation? Like will Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema get on board with that if they won't get on board with, the current budget as it stands? I mean, all of this is like, we're just putting out these fires nationwide because we don't have broad federal action to protect voting rights, and the Supreme Court is not helping. Caroline, yeah, thoughts on all this, or are we? Yeah.
No, yeah, I think you're spot on. It's God, I mean, sorry, I just heard Manchin and Sinema and my brain just kind of like stopped. Yeah, I think they have that effect on people of not being able to get anything else done. Yeah, it really is just a tragedy. It's crazy talking to people in certain other countries, like their voting processes of they're just like, oh yeah, you're like just sent a ballot and then you vote and whatever. It's like, it's mind blowing.
Yeah, or you can't sell alcohol the day before the election.
Wait, that's amazing.
Yeah. I lived for a time in Argentina, where we talk about a lot, but yeah, you're not allowed to sell alcohol, like alcohol sales stop. I believe that maybe in some states in the United States also that is the case, but you can't make an inebriated decision.
Okay,
yeah. Okay. But yes, you're right. Even in states like, the longest I've ever waited in a line was like, if there's not Taylor Swift tickets or like brunch at the end of your line, like why? This is not worth it. No. But imagine waiting that long for voting. Not good.
No.
Let's move on to our next story. Switching gears a little bit. We started this hour and change talking about Border Patrol and their aggression. And yeah, they are one hand of this two-pronged problem that's happening inside of the border in places like Missouri. So let's go to this video.
I know he can't do that. He stick the dog on him. God damn. Don't let the dog bite him.
I'm recording it.
That's like a dog. Lord have mercy. That's sad.
You heard?
Oh my God. Are you
So that happened in Missouri, and it is footage of 3 police officers allowing a dog to bite and to drag to the ground a man who was being put under arrest, who police say was somehow resisting. Now, you guys can rewind that, watch it as many times as you need to see where the resistance took place. I honestly have seen it a lot and cannot find where he is resisting arrest. So that was the Woodson Terrace Police Department, who said they were called on September 20th after reports of a man trespassing at a business in the Woodson Terrace. They alleged that the man was refusing to leave and threatening to kill the responding officers, and claimed that he was a sovereign citizen. They said that they warned the man, who they thought was on drugs, that if he did not comply, they would use a dog. Okay, let's break that apart. So we've got trespassing. Is that a violent crime? No. Was he armed? No. Threatening to kill verbally? They thought he was on drugs? Okay, was that not confirmed? This sounds like a lot of hearsay from cops who allowed their dog to maul someone who was supposed to be put under arrest, if even that. Now, okay, so for breaking that down for y'all, if you guys didn't watch the video, or just to explain what happened in the video, the 2 officers are seen arresting the man while he's leaning over the hood of his car. Another officer stands in front of the car with a barking dog. The man appears not to be resisting arrest, but the canine is still released on him as the other 2 cops step away. The dog continues barking as it nips at the ankles of the man, who shouts and grabs his legs. The man can be heard yelling help, but the 3 officers stand by and let the dog continue to attack him. The 2 officers then push the man on the ground, and the dog starts pulling and yanking at his leg. Eventually, the 3rd cop pulls the dog away, only to release him again on the suspect. The dog bites and drags the man to the ground. This is again all while the police officers are there standing by watching. So that's twice that he was sicked on this man. Reactions, Caroline, to this footage?
The footage is, it's absolutely heartbreaking and devastating. And the statement from the police, who, let's remind ourselves, lie all the time. They are under no obligation actually to tell the truth in these instances. The statement itself shows that they are the problem. That the policy, this is basically like why I don't believe there can be reform from within, because if they are making the policies, and in their words, which again, they are allowed to make up whatever story they want, by their own definition of the policies that they have, they can do things like this. So this is why the only answer is to defund the police and take money away from these overbloated departments. Because, all last year we learned that in city budgets, the police budget constantly is getting raised at the expense of other social programs. And what this does is they say, oh, we need money for training, for diversity, bias, implicit training. And as we can see in videos like this again and again and again, the problem is the institution. And I saw earlier today, which was just so heartbreaking and frustrating, that it seems as if the reform measures and laws that are being pushed in Congress have basically stalled, and it looks like they're not going to go any further. And that is just embarrassing. The biggest mass movement probably in the history of this country of people during a pandemic was to defund these departments across the country, because everyone knows that they have far too much money, far too many resources. And it just shows a lack of complete willpower and honestly respect from Democrats, moderate Republicans in Congress, because people have been fighting. People with their loved ones who have been murdered by police have been on the front lines. And finally, there is also public agreement in that. And the fact that these bills in Congress have just sort of quietly died is just more videos like this, more and more and more. And what is it gonna take at this point? I really don't know.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the political will and the fact that I've never seen more of a disconnect from the popular will, right? We always talk about, things like Medicare for all, acting on climate change. Everybody likes that. Well, also things like a severe, if not defunding of the police, reform or defunding of the police, but we can't even get the most basic reforms passed. You saw the popular will on the streets. And so I've never seen a more disconnect between the politicians that are supposed to represent us and the people who have took to the streets, like you said, in the middle of a pandemic to actually voice their opposition to these acts of cruelty. And look, this is one act that I think really does demonstrate the amount of cruelty, sicking an animal, a dog, to bite, to drag to the ground a unarmed man who was not resisting arrest, who was already cornered by 3 police officers. I think that's the definition of cruelty. And it's not just me saying that. I want to turn to two folks weighing in on this incident. The editorial board of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch writes, this incident bears all the hallmarks of cops deciding to issue their personal form of street justice, inflicting pain and punishment on the spot instead of waiting for the courts to do their job. It's almost like they enjoy it. It's almost like they like letting go of the dog, even though this suspect was already in custody, was already being detained. It's almost like, oh, let's just let go of the dog one more time and see what happens. Yeah, that's great. For trespassing, I want to, obviously a lot of people, I'm thinking about the dog in this case, the idea that you could train an animal to do something like that. There's an expert, Michael Gould, who specializes in all of these police tactics that are used using canines. And he says the fact of the matter is it's a human reflex to resist a canine coming at you. You can't have an 80-pound dog puncturing your skin and be compliant. It's virtually impossible. Any final thoughts, Caroline, before we wrap?
Just quickly, we gotta get the dogs out of there. This is like, liberate the dogs. It's same with horse cops. Like, get these animals out. It really is sad that these animals are trained to do a specific job for whatever type of criminal, but now they're just being let loose. And you have to wonder if it's just police trying to abdicate their own responsibility, putting it onto these animals that you have trained. I mean, what is the dog whisperer? He always says there's no bad dogs, only bad owners. He doesn't say it like that, but it's basically like, however a dog acts is directly a reflection of the owner. Of course, not in the case of like certain rescues and stuff like that, but a trained bred dog.
100%. And as we used to yell at the NYPD in my activism days, get those animals off those horses. And with that, that does it for the damage report on a Thursday without Johnny Iadarola. Caroline Johnson coming in, Francesca Fiorentini coming in the pinch. Caroline, thank you so much. Everybody, check out Knock LA and all of Caroline's work.
Thank you so much. So great to be here.
Hell yes, and thank you, and to all the damage report, the entire team, just crushing it this week. And remember, guys, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and slay out there. Bye.